Welcome back to another episode of Meta. I want to start this episode with a little bit of storytelling from my JobSpire days. You see, I was a very paranoid product manager and an even more paranoid CEO. Every time we released a new feature, an old feature would break, right? And customers would always complain in our early days. So, being the paranoid CEO and product manager that I was, I made sure that we got a lot of testing done on our platform, and we do most of this testing manually. And the problem is that as your platform gets more and more complex, smaller and smaller things break in places you don't really expect. And when you're handling a huge volume of scale, things breaking like this is not a good sign. So what would essentially happen is we release some new feature, and then some small feature somewhere else that was dependent on this feature will stop working. Right, and for many days and many hours, our platform would be down, and we'd have to put in the effort. And which is why I had a team of 4 or 5 people just sitting and testing every new release. And we'd only release on a Saturday night, so that it's very rare for people to sit and search for jobs on a Sunday morning. So that was our idea, and the testers would sit all of Saturday night and actually test this platform. We had freelancers, so it was hell, right? Until I actually came across automated testing, and we started doing this the right way software is supposed to be built. This was many years ago. In the first year of JobSpire, we obviously got better, and in this video I'm going to talk about how you can actually do quality assurance and testing so that your customers don't come and throw stones at you when things don't work. Here we go. Alright, so there are many pieces to quality assurance. For software products, it's about the features that were planned, are shipped according to specifications, and nothing breaks. So all the features that were planned go out, and B, nothing breaks. Manual testing is an important part of this process. In the past, every time a new release was shipped, testers would go randomly click random stuff, right? It was how it happened for many years, especially in the 1990s during the period when software was just starting out. So there are many different kinds of testing. There's functional testing, there's automation testing, there's usability testing, but we're not going into all of that right now. Manual testing, it's the classic way to test. So in the gaming industry, you actually have people who are employed who carry a controller, and their only job is to walk into every wall in the game. Can you believe even today, companies like Ubisoft hires people to actually just walk into every wall in the game they create just to make sure none of the walls are go through? Right? It actually happens even today. In the software world, that actually means clicking every button, filling every form with good data as well as bad data, and making sure it leads to the right places or that you see the right errors, right? Even going to a form and entering no password, you have to make sure that it actually sends out an error, and you don't move into the next page or the next part of the form, right? That's not supposed to happen. So not only are you supposed to test for the positives, you're also supposed to test for the negatives. So to prevent a new release from directly going and reaching an audience, what most companies do is they have something called a staging server. It's like a backup or temporary server that developers push new releases to. The staging servers is where the manual testers play. So you have a development server where you're developing something locally on your computer, and then you push it to a staging server where somebody's approved it, and now it's live, and there are a bunch of people who are actually testing this right now, a bunch of manual testers. And once the manual testers say, hey, this is okay to go, then you push it to the production server, which is the actual live server. So most developers would just call this prod to sound cool. So as a product manager, if you hear the word prod, it means production. Automated testing came about, fairly recently. It's actually been only a decade or so since we've been using it across different kinds of software. You use a computer to do what a human would do. And there are 2 main types of automation testing, which is unit testing and integration testing. Unit testing tests for bad data in models. Right? So it makes sure that text can't be stored in a number field, bad data shouldn't get into the database. So you have to make sure that everything is stored well, because if you go to the database and you go to, you want to pull out some numbers and do, addition on them, but somebody has stored strings in the database, right, which is not numbers, and you try to do addition on them, you'd be in trouble, right? There'd be a lot of problems. So unit tests should make sure that no bad data gets in the database. Integration testing tests interactions. So filling a form, clicking a button, pressing a drop down, all of that stuff. And many online frameworks do interaction testing. There's Selenium, there's Jasmine, there's Robot. It's like an automated robot that does mouse click and keyboard fills or keyboard typing, right? That's all it does. And you can program it to behave like a normal human being. So codeless automation testing is something new, right? And I think once I show you a little bit of codeless automation testing, you'll understand the entire idea of automated testing. Like I said, on the Meta platform, we show you things live instead of just throwing theory at you. So we're going to go and write some tests live right now on ntest.io, which is free. Right, so let's do that. Let's go to ntest.io. Really hope I have a login on this. Let me log in. Awesome. So I think, I've not used this right now, but let's look at one of these superhero tests, right? So these are called test cases. So you have multiple in a test suite. You have something called a test suite, which is a bunch of tests. It's like we bundle stories into epics. Similarly, we bundle tests into test suites. And then we have test cases, which are each individual, like the story, each individual and kind of scenario. So you have something called get superhero name, right? So this is how your test looks, and there are some steps, and I'll show you what it does, right? So the first step is go to Springhole, right, which is an action, and this is just a name you can give it. So go to Springhole, which is go to a URL. This is the full URL. So let me show you, what this URL looks like. This is what it looks like, or rather, this is what is on the URL. So you have a quirky fantasy name generator. This is some random small website. I'm not going to donate to you, sorry. Google, that's not a very good ad. So you have quirky fantasy name generator, and the next thing is to click on the superficate button, right? So you click, you can do many different actions, click, write text, go to URL. These are all things that a human would do. Upload a file, snipping tool, hover, anything. So click and you locate element by name. Now this is CSS. You should have done the front end part of the Meta course to understand what this is like. Most testers know the CSS components. So I'm just going to locate element by name, and you're looking for the name called bgenerate, right? So this is generate, and if you inspect it, you will see that this name is equal to bgenerate, right? And this is CSS. You need to know a little bit, but for this episode, if you don't know CSS, that's fine. This is why I keep saying, right? Design, code, front end, product. They're all kind of the same thing if just looked at from different perspectives. So the name bgenerate, we're looking for that. So we click on the button which has a name of bgenerate. So the system will click on this button. Some names are going to come out, and then you take a screenshot, right? You can actually use ntest to take a screenshot. Then what you do is you verify superhero names, which is you add an assertion, right? An assertion is a way to check if what is on the left equals what is on the right. So what you're looking for is that the element does not contain the value. You're asking it to assert that the element does not contain the value, right? In the name part, story, right? And you're looking for click the button below. So what you're saying is there is something called story, or something with the name of story. Let's see what that is. All right, so this is ntest.io, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a new test suite. Just like user stories are bundled into epics, test cases are bundled into test suites. So we're going to create a new test suite here. We're going to create a new test suite. We'll just say go to Wikipedia and search for eggs. I don't know, this is the weirdest thing I can do, but let's do this. So let's do this, right? So we'll go to Wikipedia and search for eggs. So we create this test suite. Okay, so we'll just create this test suite, and we're going to create a new test case, right? We'll call this the first testing for eggs. So what we're going to do is we will go to Wikipedia, right? So we will go to URL and we will go to wikipedia.com. Let's open a new tab and make sure we do this on the side as well. Right, so we wanted to go to wikipedia.com. So this is what the browser will do. Then what we wanted to do is we wanted to fill this. We'll use some CSS. Like I said, CSS, products, testing, they're all, the more you know of one field, the more you know of the next. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for the element named search, right? It's called, this is the name, this is the parameter, and this is search, its value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let's see if there's a fill, right? And here's a lot of the actions that you can take. You can click with offset, you can clear input, you can scroll, you can pause. What I'm going to do is, so, you can do a bunch of things. I'm going to click on write text. I'm going to choose the name. I'm going to say the name search, right? And I'm going to write eggs, right? That's what I'm going to write. And I'm going to say fill in the search bar with the word eggs. Right, so let's see. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this search button, and because it doesn't have a word, I'm just going to right click it. The type of the button is submit. So let's see if I can use that. I'm going to click by D. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click by the class name, and I'm going to put in the class name, which is pure button, primary, progressive. Like I said, you can use any of the identifiers. It's not very difficult to understand this once you've learned CSS. You need to go through the Meta front-end course or the Meta coding bit where we teach you web development. And the step is click on search. Right? Now what we want to do, let's just try that as well. Let's just type eggs, click on search. And we want to make sure that we reach a page that has egg, right? So what we need to do now is we need to add an assertion. Assert that the word egg is displayed on the page. Displayed on the page, right? So we can actually add an assertion. And an assertion is a way to make sure that we know something, and we want to make sure that what we know is being shown on the page. So what we do is we look for element is present, and we look for, what is the name of the CSS class? It is first heading, okay? And we want to say that if inside the first heading, okay, we want to make sure that something is present. Actually, we can actually go even further. Element contains value inside the first heading. We want to look for the value egg what is this? Disambiguation. Man, that's the worst spelling. Let me just use spelling correction. Disambiguation. This is exactly what it's supposed to say, and this is exactly what we've put. Right? I think no, this is a small d. Right? This is case sensitive, of course. Right? So we have to be very careful. And that's it. In fact, now I can take a screenshot. So I can literally say take screenshot. Right? So this is it. This is how you create a test suite, and this is how most testers would do this manually. So I can actually save this. Okay, I can save this. And what I can do is I can actually run this. Right? So I can, I think there's a way to run tests. So what I can do is I can actually run this entire set of tests on a Windows 10. I can actually set the exact settings. I can say, okay, I want to run it on a Windows 10 with different features, whatever, and I can just click the run button. And obviously, you know, I've been using the NTest trial on this account, but it actually runs the test for you, and you'll actually be able to see whether it passes, which gives you a green light, or doesn't pass, which gives you a red light. And if you've take a screenshot, then it actually shows you a screenshot. But the idea is to replicate how a normal human clicks and fills in items by using CSS selectors, which we've learned on the front end part of this course. So that's it for this video. Hope you learned a little more about automated testing and testing in general. In the next episode, we're going to go a little deeper and look at some other parts of the product development space.